welcome to IT Road Trip, Coast to Coast. We're glad that you're joining us on our journey as we talk to influential leaders in the IT and channel industries. The IT landscape is undergoing significant change, and that change is accelerating. On our journey, we will address dynamic topics with leaders from technology companies, service providers, integrators, agents, industry analysts, and of course, IT decision makers. Your hosts on this journey will be Michelle Hyde, President and founder of the Hyde Group, and Carmen Sorice, CEO and founder of Qlarity. Today, our topic is the speed of change in the IT industry. And our guest today is Jay McBain, Principal Analyst, Global Channels with Forrester. I think it's about time we introduce our inaugural guest, Jay McBain, Principal Analyst, Forrester. Jay, we're looking forward to hearing your insights about the channel, hearing about what you think the industry is going through in terms of change, how fast that change is happening. And we're really excited about having you here. And thank you so much for agreeing to be our first guest.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a big honor.
Thank you. Well, can you please share with our audience a little bit about your role at Forrester and also the role that Forrester marketing and research plays in the technology industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been at Forrester since June. I've been in the channel for 25 years in different types of roles. Forrester, much like companies like Gartner and IDC and others, play an advisory role and an analyst role. You know, one of the mantras of Forrester is to challenge thinking and to, initiate change. So it's interesting where a third of my job is spent out in front of audiences, keynoting. A third of it is spent researching with 1,000 different colleagues. And then a third of it is spent advising customers in terms of how to run a channel, what to think about the channel going forward, and best practices.
Great, thank you. And I was also revealed that you recently moved from the Northeast down to the Southeast. What major change have you experienced down there, and have you had Gator yet?
Well, I've moved 8 times. I worked for IBM and Lenovo, so got a lot of chances to do corporate moving. In this case, I moved because my wife joined Office Depot from Cisco, and I was moved along with her. So I'm a Canadian originally, so this just feels like an extended vacation for me.
Nice. Well, welcome. And I'll turn it over to you, Carmen, for the first question.
Great, thanks, Michelle. And Jay, it's not only an extended vacation, but a vacation in a warmer climate compared to what you're used to.
That's true.
So Jay, I gotta ask you a question about things I've read in terms of your posts and your articles, and also things that I've heard you talk about on stage at different industry forums. How do you see the new customer buying process changing the channel ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, I've seen some really, really big changes, both in our research, talking to customers, talking to partners, talking to vendors. This channel, which has been around for about 37 years, has gone through dozens of big changes, technology changes, business model changes, but the customer has stayed pretty stable, IT departments and CTOs, et cetera. And that's now changed. 65% of all tech decisions are made outside of the IT department. And in 30% of those cases, IT is not even involved. So you've got new buyers, and what we're starting to learn is these new buyers have new behaviors. So they do a ton of research on their own. They prefer to buy direct, which is different than IT departments. 80% of them say that the people they deal with are not experienced enough. So we're seeing a massive change in terms of the buyer themselves. And then we're seeing changes in the ecosystem around what those, who those buyers are invited into the room to help them with their decisions.
Great. No, that all makes sense. I appreciate you going into detail. So let me ask you a follow-up question. You talk a lot about change. And one of the things that Michelle and I are seeing is that the speed of change seems to be accelerating. And we see two forces in play, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about them. Those two forces are, first and foremost, the buyer types. as you just said, the buyer types are changing. That's enabling the market to move at a faster speed. And the second dynamic that we see are the offers and solutions from hyperscaled cloud providers, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google. So how do you see those two factors influencing the acceleration of change that we're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The other day I likened it to climate change. It's not this linear long-term thing that it just gets progressively worse every day. There starts to be things that tip the scales, and there's exponential change. And we thought the cloud would start to move in as people got more comfortable with security and other parts of it. But that's happening much quicker than we expected 5 to 10 years ago when we made these predictions. And you're in scenarios now where not only SMBs and mid-market, governments, education, but the Fortune 500 are quickly digitally transforming. Mm-hmm. And a big piece of that is, bringing in layers of technology to transform their businesses. And as these new buyers are taking hold, the average project may have 10 different layers of technology, including AWS and Google and Microsoft, as you mentioned, but there might be 9 other layers. And there's over 100,000 technology software makers today, ISVs, that are participating. I expect that number to go to 1 million within 10 years because it's already gone up by 10x in the last 10 years. And that's what's accelerating this change and accelerating the innovation that these new buyers are taking advantage of.
Oh, thanks, Jay. That's really insightful and helpful. And it is consistent with what we're seeing with our customers, with the vendors we work with, and also the partners we work with in the industry.
Yeah, and so with those rapid changes and exponential changes that are going on, we also see the youthanizing of the workforce. So with millennials expected to be 75% of the workforce in the next 6 years or so, what do you expect the changing of the buying impact and the ecosystem to look like in the future?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I like the word euthanizing because it goes number one.
Be careful. I have to be careful to use that word, not misuse that word.
There's over 600,000 partners out there, and 80% of them are struggling to make the change.
Mm-hmm.
New buyers and into these new opportunities, and they're missing acceleration, which is one definition of euthanizing. The other definition is the influx of millennials. So today, there are actually more millennials than any other generation in the workforce. And that starts to accelerate because when I said the channel was 37 years old and the average person starting either after college or during college, whatever, that puts the average age out there at 58. So you have this automatic demographic changeover that's happening. The millennials, though, are not wanting to fix PCs. They don't want to pull cables. They don't want to put toner and printers. They want to work in these business environments with these new buyers. So they're joining and building SaaS ecosystems that go into, let's say, Salesforce or Marketo or into a NetSuite or a Workday, companies like that. They're building services around those. They're getting into professional services firms that serve line of business buyers. They serve sub-industries. They're becoming experts in very focused and specialized places. They're building companies. So ISVs, a big part of that growth is millennials, starting companies, firing them up. It takes pennies today to go to GoDaddy and get some of these tools that are out there and build yourself your own brand. And we're seeing startups, 5,000 companies a year getting venture funding, and that's accelerating. And, all in all, there's this new born in the cloud generation that is mostly millennial. They don't resell anything. They don't focus on front or back end margins. They understand that the downstream revenue in these new accelerating places can be up to 4 times the amount that a customer spends on the actual software itself. Mm-hmm. And those margins today are somewhere between 40 and 80%. It's an absolute gold mine for millennials to dive into, something that's interesting, make a lot of money, and make a big impact.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And we just have one, and it's just kind of an easy question for you. But as a road warrior and as somebody who's all over the country all the time speaking, do you have any technology applications that you use that are absolutely a guarantee for your sanity?
Yeah. Well, I'm number one is I'm highly mobile. And many people will use 3, 4, 5 apps on their phone regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I probably use 50. So on the road warrior side, something like TripIt, is a little bit of a lifesaver, getting everything uploaded into one place and having that land on my calendar
Mm-hmm.
and getting notifications and stuff like that. So from a road warrior perspective, I use that heavily, but I use a lot of, wearable technology and, managing my health and my eating and my weight and my, all the other exercise components of my life too. So my life probably since 11 years old has been highly managed.
Nice.
That's great.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And it's been a true pleasure having you as our first guest on IT Road Trip Coast to Coast. And we just want to say thank you for that, and that we've learned a lot about the transformation that we're expecting here in the years to come. And I think we all come away with a lot more information that is vital for our success here in the years to come as well. So for those folks that want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you or to be able to follow you on the words of wisdom that you are expelling to us?
Yeah, so I'm all over. J McBain is my Twitter handle. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook.
Okay.
So I think prevalent across 10 social networks. So it's probably not hard. I have a personal blog as well. That's jmcbain.com. That has a lot of my personal information.
Yep. That's great, Jay. And I want to also thank you for being our first guest on IT Road Trip Coast to Coast. And to your point about being on the road, I'm sure I'll see you on the road here soon at one of the many industry conferences. Any conference I show up at, it's not surprising when I look down and see Jay McBain as keynoting one of the conferences. So look forward to seeing you on the road. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of IT Road Trip Coast to Coast. We're looking forward to seeing you again as we meet with other leading industry experts to cover the fast-moving developments in the IT and channel worlds. You can reach out to and follow our hosts, Michelle Hyde and Carmen Sorice, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or by email. Until next time, safe travels, and we look forward to seeing you soon on our next episode of IT Road Trip Coast to Coast.